What is the best way to guarantee a first place in teamfight tactics? Is it playing for the perfect item and augment combination? Is it hitting the right units or vertical traits that are currently overpowered? Or perhaps a capped Fast 9 legendary board? Nope. The answer almost always is 3-star legendary. In this episode of In Too Deep, we go over a game from upcoming North American star player Tleyds, who's crushing the competition and converts a high roll opening into a legendary finish. All right, so we're loading up into game number 6 of day 3 here at the Shurima Cup. Tleyds is in a really good spot to qualify for the final day of competition, but he also wants to play for bonus points. Points reset going to day number 4, but if you finish high enough in day 3, you get extra points that carry over and therefore boost your chances of making that final lobby. And so for Tleyds, he's going first, or basically top 5 is what he's aiming for, so he can guarantee get in. Top 6 is also probably okay. He's the only person that stands on Stillwater Hold though, so he's a little bit counter meta. Thankfully, we don't have Stillwater Hold. I don't think we'd be reviewing this game if it was Stillwater Hold. Although maybe in the future, maybe we do something like that. So this is Scuttle Puddle, and Tleyds ends up opening with a Kale, a Poppy, and a Renekton. You could reroll Kale, but reroll Kale in this galaxy is usually dependent on your opening items, so he needs something like a bow in order to feel really confident about it. He has a Samira pair. You can play around this as solid early game, play around whatever pairs you can get. Reroll comps are just generally good on Scuttle Puddle because you get so much gold to hit very early, and then you can use that gold to level up and keep on tempo. Kind of like with Kale, you want to get to level 9. Oh, unfortunately, we get 3 item components, meaning that we can't make 10, which is a big deal. On Scuttle Puddle, if you are able to make gold on 1-3, you have 10 gold. You'll have enough gold to actually get to 20 gold if you sell everything but one range unit. It needs to be ranged though, because if it's melee, there's a chance that you're not able to kill everything. And there's been some clips of people playing like Cho'Gath, for example, and losing to the Scuttles. As a result, we get a Akshan drop, and Akshan is a pretty good unit to play around, especially with a sword, bow, and a cloak, and he sells the Kale. Okay, so let's look at this first augment set. So we have Latent Forge, Healing Orbs, and Branching Out. Latent Forge is a really safe pick. It's something that you will get really powerful item later on, but you don't have anything to play for a stage and a half, meaning that you have to rely on the strength of your board. So Latent Forge gets better the more strong your early game board is. Healing Orbs is actually kind of the spiritual successor to Thrill of the Hunt, if you remember from previous sets. Thrill of the Hunt was really good early because that flat HP, that 300 guaranteed, is really strong early so that you can keep healing things like your frontline or other units and win fights. That being said, Healing Orbs is usually good if you have a strong board and he's holding a bunch of pairs, like a pair of Samira and a pair of Poppy. Not particularly really good. So if you don't feel like you have a good chance to streak, you probably don't want to pick Healing Orbs. But as a general notion, Healing Orbs 1 is very, very good for a silver. Branching Out is usually to get something like Direction, but Direction is not really what we need because we already have a general skeleton of what we want to play, which is around the Akshan, the Deadeye, and Akshan will be holding the items. Branching Out has a high chance of giving us something like a complete deviation. Let's say we get something like a Sorcerer Emblem, and we didn't hold any of those Sorcerers. We held all these AD champions. That would be a really bad scenario, and then we would have to Reforge, which is not ideal in that scenario. But I think that I would probably reroll Branching Out and Healing Orbs here, even though Healing Orbs is generally pretty good. So we reroll and we hit Blood Money. Blood Money is pretty good for loose streaking and rerolling. If we didn't actually sell that Kale, you could argue that Blood Money and Scuttle Puddle is fantastic for the Kale reroll. And then we get Component Buffet. So Component Buffet is pretty good. It's actually one of the best silvers because every random item you get is huge. Plus we might get another sword here for a Deathblade, which he immediately rips. Deathblade Runins is Akshan's best item set early and gives him potential upside later on. Let's say he gets somehow another Orn Anvil. If he picks like a prismatic augment that gives him an Orn Anvil, then he can go for something like Gold Collector, which could be pretty strong. But overall, this gives him a lot of solid ground to start walking on because he has a good damage source. And now he's just playing a generic frontline like Challengers, which is not exactly the frontline you think about, but he does have 2 tankier units as opposed to playing around the Samira. And this is really good because I think a lot of people would try to think about playing like Samira. Currently on this patch, and it's not necessarily true of right now, but Samira is really overtuned. And so a lot of people would feel like, oh, I should be playing like Samira because it's OP. But in this case, Tleyds is going for balance on his front line and back line. 2 units in front, 2 units in back. And so this brings us to a very important concept, which is in the early game, try to focus on a balanced front line and back line. So make sure that you're trying to prioritize enough units to stall for really powerful damage in the back line through this Akshan to snipe units. He also has the option of potentially playing 4 Challenger here. He picked up the Callista. Callista could end up holding these items fairly well as Samira. But for now, he recognizes that Akshan specifically uses these combo of items very, very well, and feels very confident that he can get the win, which is really huge. If you switch to Samira one, so we find a Jinx, so we want to check our Zon mod. It's Robotic Arm, and Robotic Arm gives us those extra chances of proccing that damage. So I think that the transition to Jinx makes sense here. And that fight was a little bit close. I think that in the end, we do want to transition closer to challengers because we do have that 4th challenger. We could even double level here and play it. And I think this is just a mark of a really experienced player who recognizes when to level the 5. This is another important lesson, which is only level off cadence if you have a streak to preserve, as well as the ability to play a champion that matters. In this instance, I think a lot of people would level to play something that doesn't really matter. Like they could play, you know, a random Ashe, or maybe they play like another challenger that doesn't give us a breakpoint. Like maybe they play another Irelia 1. In this instance, he's hitting some really important breakpoints of 4 challenger, and also he can still make 10 gold. If you end up having to level up twice there and then not make gold and then lose, that's the worst case scenario. But instead, he guaranteed that he was still able to make 10. He scouted around to see if whether or not he was strong enough to beat some of these boards if he leveled to 5, and he was rewarded with it with some really high tempo. So looking at the item components here, he basically has vest, cloak, or tier, and this is just the best thing that he could afford, which is the most amount of gold. In general, when you have no components that you can combine into an item, like you don't have any components on your bench, you can just pick the highest cost champion, so that way you can try to make your next interest threshold. And that's actually really big because now he made 20. If you actually look at his EXP bar, he's 4 out of 24, meaning that he wouldn't have been able to hit 20 very easily and hold his bench unless he picked up that 3 gold off the carousel. This Jinx able to clean up is very huge, and he snaps his opponent's win streak, who has a 2-star Samira, picks up his own Samira. There's actually an argument for whether or not he should transition these items onto a Samira 2. Sells everything else because he recognizes that that's not important to hold. Yes, he could have played around Akshan and gone back into the Deadeye, but for now, he's just playing around what makes his board strong. And strongest board probably just does include this Jinx because of the Robotic Arm being very solid, and now goes up against a pretty strong board from Pokkengam, who also is playing this Samira. And so now, if we can get this win, we are on 5 streak, and we win pretty convincingly thanks to the Jinx and the Samira with the armor reduction, which is pretty huge. There's actually some really good synergy if you think about like with the way Samira is interacting with Jinx. He even has a unit that's above Jinx so that it can take aggro, and Jinx is the last unit to die. I actually want to go back and show a little bit of some of the small positioning things that he's doing, which is he has a unit that's above Jinx, meaning that he wants Jinx to be the last unit to die and have her be surrounded. So he'd rather have this Callista take aggro and give a little bit of buffer, because every single second that you can give Jinx is huge for her auto, so that she can get another chance to proc Robotic Arm and potentially pop off with her rockets. So a lot of small, subtle things that have helped Tleyds get the streak going. And he's also in a great spot because every single item he get here will be a component anvil. And overall, he is swimming in the money. So this is really good start, very strong. Okay, so Tleyds got 4 random item component anvils, which is pretty big because it actually can help shore up his items, so that way he can guarantee that he has balance to it. A lot of times in this spot, you want to, 1, make sure that you have good frontline items. So in this case, he goes for a bow to start things off, but I highly recommend a vest. And now he's thinking about a really important decision, specifically with this anvil, because he knows that he can make something like a stoneplate gargoyle for the Irelia, but now he needs to think about what are the best things he can do to maximize both his strength now and items that he can use later. If he goes for something like a sword in this spot, he can go for like Giant Slayer, but at the same time, he has so much AD that I think the one thing he wants is attack speed. He's actually looking for a Rage Blade so that he can make this Jinx really strong right now and scale, and then eventually put these items onto a unit like Aphelios and Zeri. So he's thinking about how to get a 3-item carry and then start building around frontline items. But without it, I wonder if he's going to take a sword, just be generic, because you can go for like Titans plus Bloodthirster in this exact spot. Thinks about the sword, thinks about the cloak. He takes this sword. The sword is specifically for an option for Bloodthirster and the Titans resolve. So he's thinking about taking bow in this spot, and I think it's because he doesn't hit Rage Blade. And this brings us to an important damage formula in TFT, which is you want to maximize your flat stats with attack speed and get the bonus damage. And bonus damage has 2 categories in crit and damage amplification. So in this spot, having the attack speed with RFC is more important for the Jinx than trying to go for like an item and then go for Rage Blade later. And RFC gives you a bunch of attack speed and is quite an underrated item, specifically on Zeri in particular. So I think a lot of people are hesitant to slam that, but you should just go ahead and go for it, especially in the spot here where you're streaking. So he ends up going against Phoenix. He levels to 6 and he still makes 50 gold. I think he should sell this Ashe to try to make 50, unless he wants to hold it and go for it at level 7. The argument about holding Ashe is that he's going to eventually play this Ashe anyways in every Failure variation. Okay, so he doesn't end up selling the Ashe, which is actually a more advanced move. It's really funny how TFT works because I think low level players wouldn't make gold there, but also high level players don't make gold there. But the reasoning is really important. The most important gold interest threshold that you can make is your very first one. And the least important is the 40 to 50 mark in terms of your first interest gold. This is because the first gold that you make is worth more than 1 gold, because the faster you make 10 is the faster you make 20 and 30 and 40 and 50. But the difference between 40 and 50 is literally just 1 gold, because you can't make more beyond that. And so you can be a lot more willing to hold on to units that are core to your composition if it's your last gold interest threshold. So that's a pretty advanced economy move, although I will say don't do that as a habit. You should do it in very rare instances where it's correct. I would say, generally speaking, the majority of the time you do want to make gold there, but I like holding it because he knows that he wants to hold on to Ashe. Another thing is that Ashe is a contested unit because a lot of people love playing Freljord. So the earlier you can hold some of these units that are super contested, the better. And then the last part is, this is a high economy portal, meaning that if you miss 1 gold, it's less impactful because you get so many resources on this portal. So I think it's okay to lose 1 or 2 gold as long as it's for a very good reason. Okay, now with that being said, let's go ahead and focus on the augments that we have. Small Forge, Transfusion, Jeweled Lotus. Small Forge is good for the items, but we already have Component Buffet, so Component Anvil is less value from the Small Forge, and we already have a lot of gold this game, so I feel like it's not going to be it. Transfusion 1 is okay, but we're streaking, so Transfusion basically says your units get 20 HP right now. And so I look at Jeweled Lotus 1, and I think about how we don't have anything like Infinity Edge Slam, and we have a unit that could really benefit from having a bunch of crit strike. So I think Jeweled Lotus 1 looks very clearly the strongest silver here. And Jeweled Lotus 1 makes it so that way we have like a 4th item. It's like putting an Infinity Edge onto your carry. In this case, Jinx will have 4 items and we're streaking. So it looks fairly obvious to me that Jeweled Lotus 1 will be strong. That being said, we should reroll the other 2 and see what we get. So we reroll and see Pandora's Bench and Recombobulator. Pandora's Bench is a little bit awkward because right now we don't actually have anything to transform for. And Recombobulator is more of a meme pick, and plus we don't have any 4 costs. The time to pick Recombobulator is if you hit like something like a 2-star 3 cost really early and then you transform it to a random 4 cost 2-star, or you hit like those 4 costs across the board, transform them to legendaries and play around them very early. The Jeweled Lotus pick here makes the most sense. He does have the option of leveling to 7 and then playing around the 2 Freljord now. And remember, he was holding his Ashe for the opportunity to play Freljord into the game. So 36 means that he goes down to 24 gold and he can't really sell to make 30. So I think this is not a spot to level 7, even though he could theoretically do it. And this is because you still want to make a lot of gold. The general rule that I go with when you're leveling to 7 is try to make 30 gold, because that way you can recover very quickly to max interest threshold. But if you get to 20, it feels way slower. You're going to be about a round and a half out from getting back to max interest threshold. Also, for what it's worth, we lost by 5 entire units. And therefore, if we leveled to 7, we're at 24 gold and we lost our streak, it would have been kind of a disaster. We would be making 2 to 3 gold less than a lot of other people, and we wouldn't have a streak to make up for it. So our streak has ended, and most likely we're just going to go for a standard fast 7, which is to level 7 at 3-5. And because we're so rich and we're making a bunch of gold, it'll be okay. We're thinking about the next unit that we want to play, which is likely going to be Ashe. And now we're thinking about positioning. He's trying to see which side he wants his carry to be on, because with rapid fire cannon, he wants the most amount of distance that he can maximize that range advantage that he has. And so he's putting the Jinx on the opposite corner. He also is clumping. He's recognizing that his army did lose, and so it's not that strong, especially with the Jinx 1. What he wants to do is he wants to put the 3 units of the Callista, Samira, and Jinx next to each other, because then they'll focus fire down. And this is a positioning tactic that you want to do when you're focused on preserving HP. He's no longer under the assumption that he would win guaranteed, because if he thought that he was strong enough to win a lot of fights, you want to spread out your units so that way they don't get caught by things like AoE. That Sona, for example, would have shot fewer units, but he won anyways because his board was still very strong at his baseline level. You can go for probably another sword here and start itemizing a secondary carry. Scuttle Puddle gives you extra items, so you have the opportunity to go for multiple carries. Levels of 7 immediately finds, oh my goodness, immediately finds a Zeri pair. And so this is actually a really interesting spot and decision. Do you end up rolling more from here? Which I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I have Zeri pair, I have Lysandra pair, I have Warwick pair. Let's talk about it for a quick sec. So a lot of times the reason to keep rolling here is because you need to either one, get stronger because the whole entire lobby is getting stronger, or two, you're rolling because your units are contested. So you want to try to get as many of them out of the pool as fast as possible. And therefore you are trying to claim them before they're gone from the pool. In this instance, I don't think there's many people contesting him. There's obviously like one or two other players that are angling in the same tree, but he already has Zeri pair, and he's right now trying to make sure that he not only has a strong board in order to get through the rest of the stage, but also to make sure that he's making quality decisions with his roll down, because he had a lot of gold that he could have rolled. And so a lot of times in these spots, players roll a bunch of gold and tunnel on like 7 to 8 units only, but you see that he's actually broadening his perspective because he's holding things like a Nasus or playing around some of these Ionia Challenger units. And so he chooses to stop here so he can thoughtfully position and make sure to get the items on, because that will also be a way to strengthen his board. This also goes to another important point, which is you don't have to just roll down and hit units to strengthen your board. If you roll down and make quality decisions, you can focus on position and correct optimization, and that also increases your board strength, even sometimes as much as rolling does. So here he's just going to get all the things onto the Zeri very systematically. I like that he has the Irelia on the same side as the Zeri. Oh, this board looks actually quite strong with the healing orbs and the cybernetics. So as much as I'm praising him about taking his time rolling, looks like he does end up losing this. So now we're watching and seeing that we aren't strong enough. So you could probably justify rolling again in this spot, which is important to recognize that you have more options. You can roll over the course of multiple turns and make sure to see if you can stabilize off the second round of rolling. Okay, so he hits one upgrade and finds another pair. Look at his 4 Zon, which is the Unstable Chem Tank. Unstable Chem Tank is not very good right now. Honestly, I think that's probably just him checking as opposed to thinking that he's going to play around it. In general, from the Zon perspective, if you do end up going for a 4 Zon, you have to make sure that it's a really good mod for the 4th. Otherwise, you're playing units that don't inherently make your unit stronger. If you play, Echo and Warwick, what does that do for Zeri? Nothing really. It's really about the second mod that you get. I think this is a really nice heads up play of, okay, I could go for Force On, but in the end, my core board is still stronger because the Echo one and that Warwick one wasn't really contributing a lot to the board. He's scouting around and seeing some of the players taking big damage, and now he rolls during the PvE round. And so I really like the way that he staggered his rolling, and now he's hit the 2-star Warwick and the 2-star Vi. And so he's a lot stronger now as a result. This dynamic set of rolling is something that you should do, especially if you feel like the turns are too fast. So overall, Tleyds has done a really good job so far, making sure that, oh my goodness, 4 item component anvils, and he hits a Nasus too. Okay, so now I feel safe to say it right now. We definitely are high rolling, and now we just need to find defensive items. Bramble Vest is really good. Immediately prioritize making that. You can take a item for Urgot or a defensive item for Nasus. You can go Bloodthirster, which is a very strong item in particular, onto the Urgot. The classic combination for Urgot is Bloodthirster plus a Titan's Resolve. I think if he had the option of also potentially going for a third frontline item like a Warmogs or a Redemption, I think that would have been really good. But now Tleyds is done rolling at 7, right? This is a product of him using his economy really well, converting off the streak, not pushing levels when he didn't have to, and as a result, get lucky where it really matters, but playing around some of these unusual units like a Nasus 2 that has no inherent synergy. So we're looking at our prismatics, and we have Masterful Job, Hedge Fund, and Impenetrable Bulwark. Impenetrable Bulwark is a lot worse because we already just made things like a Bramble Vest, so we don't really want that. Masterful Job is okay, but the best part about Masterful Job is the Ornn item, which gives us the ability to put something really powerful in Zeri, like a Sniper's Focus or something else, like a Trinity Force. The main reason to take something like Masterful Job is the Ornn item Anvil, which may allow us to do something like a Sniper's Focus on Zeri. Other good Ornn items could be Eternal Winter for the Nasus or a Death Defiance for the Urgot. There's actually a lot of good things that you can hit. The downside is then we don't really have that many strong combat augments. We just have Julos 1, but we'll see. I think that you could just play Masterful Job. The interesting thing about Hedge Fund is that he is already insanely rich. So he has the opportunity to go for a huge amount of gold influx and play for level level 9. And he also has some really interesting items for level 9 because he has rapid fire cannon slammed on the Zeri, and rapid fire cannon is one of the best items for something like Bel'Veth, but he doesn't have AP items for something like Ahri. And a lot of times when you're playing for a fast 9 strategy, you think about both Bel'Veth items first and then you go for the Ahri items. So we'll see. I think we want to reroll Impenetrable Bulwark first though. Endless Hordes is really good in scenarios where you get a lot of power from your traits, so you go for something like Sorcerers. That way it doesn't really feel that bad to be only playing one item on all those champions. And also in this spot, it feels like he doesn't have units to actually play with Endless Hordes, so I don't think this is the spot to take Endless Hordes. In general, Endless Hordes is also better on 3-2 because you have the ability to play a much higher tempo board when people have fewer units. I wonder if he's gonna reroll. Oh, okay. I wonder if he was gonna reroll the Masterful Job and then pick Hedge Fund. That's exactly what he ends up picking. And now he goes for a fast 8 and rolls down immediately. Hits a Heimerdinger, which is really big to stabilize his board. And uses a duplicator on his Ash, which is actually really interesting that he did that first before rolling. But looks like he ends up rolling a lot of his gold. And he's also going for double shrink because this is a nod to the fact that he doesn't have Last Whisper and he'll have to wait 8 seconds in order for the Failure to kick in. And I think a lot of people in this spot would think, if we have Freljord, why do we just take double shrink? Well, double shrink, first of all, does even more reduction than the Last Whisper or the Freljord. Freljord and Last Whisper is 40%, and the double shrink is more than that. And also what's really important is that he's doing this before the Failure Storm kicks in. If you pay attention to the fight, you're still getting some important shred all the way up to the Failure Storm, and then the Failure Storm kicks in. So I think this is something that a lot of people think like, oh, you don't actually need that shred, or you don't need things like the shrink module nearly as much, but it's still really nice to have before and after the Failure Storm. So for example, let's watch this fight here. The shrink is now reducing the armor of Galio, and Zeri's able to kill it. And finally the storm kicks in, but look at how much the fight is basically over at this point. And his opponent is playing things like Karma 3 and has all these strong boards that scale the longer the fight goes in with the Archangels. And so he's utilizing Heimer to really be strong that first half of that fight and then have Frail utility kick in later on. Now we're starting to make gold and we're streaking, so he ended up spending a lot of his gold and he can start thinking about if he wants to go to level 9. This is also a really good nod to when I was talking about Hedge Fund. I was saying how Hedge Fund was immediately to think about 9, but he didn't try to skip level 8. He rolled very deep on level 8 to make sure that he's stable. And so this is another concept that I want to talk about, which is going to level 9 is not a right, it is a privilege that is earned. You have to earn the ability to go to 9 either through an insane combination of augments or you just have ridiculously strong board strength. Oh my god, hold on a second. I thought he was ready to go to 9, but he decides to roll and hits a Senna 2. Okay, so we rolled a lot and we hit this Sejuani, and now we're also going for an Urgot pair. Oh man, so I think the more I analyze it, the more I realize this is probably something I don't do enough, which is I think that my board's good enough, so I stop rolling, but he decides that he's on streak and he wants to continue to play for streak and had more ways that he can roll and upgrade his board. He could go for a Sejuani, he could hit Urgots, he could hit, well, I guess Senna 2, and therefore improve the strength of his board further. Honestly, I think that he could have probably greeted. You see how convincingly he won his fight, largely due to things like Senna 2. I think that he didn't have to roll this much, but he ended up doing so, and I'm curious how it works out. He did have a lot of good hits, to be fair, and hitting things like the Sejuani for the 3 failure and the Mana Reeve is really big. I noticed that he has actually 3 items on his Nasus too. This is actually a slight mistake. The way you can tell is you see this blue glowing orb thing that's hovering around Nasus, kind of like he's playing Legend of Zelda and he has a bunch of those fireflies around him. He doesn't have it on his Zeri, so Tleyds actually could have optimized his board strength further if he just had the Duelist 1 guaranteed on the Zeri. Duelist 1 follows whatever is considered the strongest unit. Strongest is defined by who's holding the most items. In this case, it's a tie between Nasus and Zeri, so it's whatever unit is most recently placed onto the board. So the way to switch it would be to have Zeri be taken off the board and put onto the board, and then Zeri will get the Jewel Lotus 1 effect. Gotopuddle recovered our economy back to 30, and this is actually, again, a good note to show that Tleyds is just playing around whatever the portal is giving him. Now that I'm seeing how much gold he has after this, I'm recognizing that rolling on 8 is actually totally fine because Gotopuddle gives you so much gold. I'm really underestimating how much gold that it really gives you so you can slingshot your economy back in. And now he definitely should be considered going to 9. We popped the first anvil and we want to go for Urgot items. The best items that he can go for with the sword is probably an Edge of Night. You can go Edge of Night, Bloodthirster, and Titans. But in this spot, he doesn't really get it. I think he could consider a bow or even potentially another sword. Double Bloodthirster is also entirely possible, but I think it's weaker. I don't know exactly what's good here, so he probably takes another sword just in case. And now he can go for the Titans. You can actually go for Deathblade on Urgot. It's actually not the worst item out there, so goes for a GS and Edge of Night instead. Okay, so you know, I started to recognize that he goes for Edge of Night and GS because those are better items for level 9. The Titans BT and Deathblade stuff is better for his level 8 board, but he wants to start thinking about how he wants to bridge his items to level 9. And so this is a really good note about vision. Vision for what the game is going to look like in a stage from now. In a stage from now, he's going to be level 9. And if he makes things like, you know, Deathblade and Titans resolve in that spot, he's going to have 2 Deathblades, Runins, a Bloodthirster, and a Titans. Who ends up holding that late game, especially if he's playing around 5 costs? Not that many units. Instead, Edge of Night is really good for Belveth. Giant Slayer could be put on almost anybody. And he has a lot of versatility with his items. So I think this is actually really good play again from Tleyds that I didn't even see at that moment, which is how to play for level 9 itemization. That being said, he looks like he is running away with it. Every fight that he's going up against, by the way, he seems to be winning pretty handily. This is a pretty close fight, though. I'm pretty sure Urgot wins these because we have just a little bit more HP. We do end up making 50 gold. Now we're making 60. These fights are almost Jewel Lotus Diff. He finally notices it and puts the robotic arm. He forgot that he'd been putting it onto the Nasus this long. And we're already top 4 guaranteed, which is really nice. But remember, we need to play for first because we want to get those bonus points heading into day number 4. So Tleyds is going for some really interesting positioning here. He's trying to dodge Zephyr because he knows that these players are trying to snipe his Zeri. One thing to note is that the Senna here will aim whoever she's targeting and hit the board, but she's not going to hit units like this Heimerdinger and Ash, but that's intentional because he's trying to avoid things like this corner Zephyr. The other thing to note is that he's going up against players that have Lux, and Urgot with Edge of Night in particular is very good against that because you can put him in the corner in A1 and A7, and he'll sometimes like dash through and start to target the corner carry. And so this is actually a really powerful way for him to have optionality for his positioning, especially against the Lux players. If you're not playing Edge of Night Lux, though, you definitely should be very careful about positioning Urgot in the front row, at least in terms of getting positioned by things like that Lux. Looks like his Urgot did get Zephyred, but Vanilla's board is not particularly super strong. Vanilla's just playing for a top 4 with the Sorcerers. In top 4 it is. And now Tleyds is saving gold. He's not pre-leveling because remember, hedge fund lets you make up to maximum 10 interest gold. Now we're looking for, well, we have a Heimer pair that we could potentially take. We do end up going for that. And also Hodge is a playable item. You can put it on pretty much anybody. It's just generically flex. I think that there's also a case for taking a death cap there. Oh, we picked the Heimerdinger and reforged for Archangels. Wasn't expecting that. And he ends up getting a pretty strong AP item that he can put both on Senna for now and maybe on Ari later because he's thinking about level 9. And Senna actually scales her shields with AP, so AP sources are really good on her. And now he's trying to bolster his front line. Big Senna cast. Urgot is also doing a good job helping draw a little bit of aggression. If you can get this win, it'd be really huge because we get to 80 gold. And now we've made 80. Vanilla is dead, so we're in top 3 scenario. So we're going to 9. And there's only going to be 2 players left. We hit a Sedge pair. I wonder if it's actually worth rolling here, but you'd be rolling for just 1 unit. It's unreasonable to expect to hit Heimerdinger at 4%. If he rolls, it's just purely for Sejuani 2. But the streak is a big deal. Oh, his opponent Zephyred his front line. Is starting to wrap. Sejuani ends up getting Zephyred, and so Darius is going to the Senna. And now Zeri is going to die as well. This is Darius 2, by the way. Tleyds, of course, is doing the zoom. All right, well, we won this fight. I actually find it so funny that these guys are like doing the zoom because they're clearly tilted from like, oh, it's Darius 2, by the way, but then they win. As if this guy wasn't egregiously high rolling this game already anyways. All right, so we did it. We made it to the end of stage 5. We're finally there. Now, here is the ultimate question. What is my win condition? His win condition is getting to level 9 and playing 2-star legendaries across the board and overwhelming his opponent. He also has the option of going for a 3-star 4 cost, which he could do if he goes for like Urgot 3, Zeri 3, and with being uncontested, it looks like Zeri and Urgot both are on the table because the other players are not playing his tree whatsoever. Never mind, his opponent is holding Urgot, so you can't really play for Urgot 3 easily until Broccoli dies. But you could theoretically collect Urgots, and once Broccoli dies, you can actually just roll for the Urgot 3. So don't feel like that's not an option whatsoever. I like that he stops at 50. Yes, he has hedge fund gold, but he's not getting so greedy that he needs 10 gold per round. Instead, he's just going to collect 5. And just being realistic, you probably don't have enough time per round to actually roll 100 gold, even if you're chasing just for the legendaries. Ends up rolling past Bel'Veth. I think at this point of the game, he feels like he's in full control and he doesn't need to go for a Bel'Veth transition. Right now, he's just focused on slow rolling his gold and not overreacting. Interesting Zephyr choice. He wanted to show corner and then end up going for the turret. I actually really like this. I think a lot of people don't realize how dependent certain compositions are on the Heimerdinger turret. More and more people are trying to chase things like Zephyring turret as another alternative to hitting something like their Rageblade carry or an important frontliner. This doesn't mean it should always be Zephyring turret, but it's one really good target on top of many others. Ends up hitting an Aatrox 2. And now we're rolling a lot to see if it can go for that transition. Sells it. Hits another Aatrox 2. Okay, so I talked about the possibility of 2-star 5 costs and 3-star 4 cost, but there's actually one other massive win condition that you could potentially go for, which is a 3-star 5 cost. He's removing his items of his Urgot to chase an Aatrox 3. And so in this case, I'm down to just sell things like the Urgots, the Zeri. If we win, we can sell the Nasus. We can make 30 gold because we're going to need a lot of gold in order to hit this at 16%. There are fewer units, but we need as much gold as we can possibly get. He holds the Zeri. Wait, he has 6 Zeris. He takes his Titans. And Titans is not a bad item too. You can put on the Urgot as well. Oh man, this is starting to get real heated up. Now, Jason Java, he's not in a position to deny either because he's playing Darius and Noxus reroll, so he's stuck on lower level. So the funny thing about rolling for 3-star legendaries when you're going up against someone who's lower level is that they have fewer chances to deny because their shops are worse. If you end up going for a 4 cost, they could roll and take a lot of 4 costs out of the pool. But in this spot, Jason Java is not in a spot to deny. It's a really good Zephyr. Oh, okay, so both players get Zephyrs onto carries. It is also worth noting that Tleyds end up putting the Aatrox onto the board last, meaning that he's getting the Jeweled Lotus. So this Aatrox 2 is actually his Jeweled Lotus 3 carry at the moment. Oh gosh, Darius 3 is making quick work of our board. It's actually okay to lose this because if we do want to chase 3 stars as our win condition, we can use our HP to get some gold back. So notice that he's not rolling all of his gold down. If he wants to play for a massive win condition of like Zeri 3 and Aatrox 3 and go for that first place, then he needs to buy as much time as possible. And so in some ways, he's trying to like not win by a lot, but in other ways, he doesn't mind if he wins because he wants to put Jason Java on 1 life. His rearrangement, because he's trying to avoid getting Zephyred, a good dodge, baiting his opponent at the very last second. He ends up Zephyring things like the Warwick, which is not very good. And the Darius does end up getting caught a little bit, but we're just trying to make sure that this fight is competitive, even if we don't win, because I don't think that our board could actually win. We just lost by a lot last round. We're losing by a significant amount this round as well. And now going to stage 7, we're going to get another gold injection through the PV round. And now at this point, because it's stage 7 and a lot of damage is going to rack up, we probably should think about sending our gold. If we can get a duplicator off, that'd be super nice. He's floated a little bit of gold, right? He could have about 4 or 5 more gold if he end up selling all his units. Now we're chasing Senna 3, but the benefit of buying the Senna 2 is that it pulls out more legendaries from the pool. I kind of like Thieves Gloves here on Scion. Urgot's also totally fine. And he's choosing not to roll again because he wants to focus on positioning a lot more than just sending it to potentially hit Aatrox 3. Going for a blind Zephyr because he knows that Jason Java has been cornering his Darius in the front row. This is a blind read that's very advanced. It might look like he wasn't scouting, but he was actually trying to 50-50 because if he doesn't show Jason that he's trying to aim for it, Jason doesn't think that he's trying to snipe the Darius. So there's mind games going on at the very highest level, which is really funny because on the surface level, it looks like he's not scouting, but he's purposely not scouting to not reveal his little legend on his opponent's board. Okay, Scion 2, another legendary out of the pool. Brother, we're at 31 HP. We probably survive another big hit at stage 7. Oh, we have 7 Aatroxes. There's another thing that you can consider doing, by the way, which is if he's losing despite hitting all this, you can start selling off your non-essential pieces to try to go for a 3-star legendary. You actually a lot of times just need the 3-star legendary and nothing else to win the game. So you can sell things like the Nasus 2, the Urgots, even the Senna and Heimers and whatnot. So you can get Aatrox 3 with, just by himself or a couple other units, and you will win the game. Okay, but Aatrox 2 just looks so bad compared to this Darius 3. We're alive, but now we absolutely have to send. Because this is our last life here. We've traded almost all of our HP to get to this point. Please, Mortdog, one time. Any Aatroxes? Urgots? Urgots bait at this point. He's chasing just Aatrox 3. Oh my god, that's 8 Aatroxes. Sell all your units, sell your units. Sell the Senna, sell the Senna. Rebuy the Senna. And there it is, Aatrox 3. And he also has the mental space to remove the Aatrox on the board that's holding Zephyr because it combines based off the units on the board. And now we have it, Aatrox 3. Let's watch it. It got Zephyred. Let's watch it in action 5 seconds a little bit later. And Aatrox 3 is floating and now starting to drop the Darkened Blade. Oh my god. 29,000 damage? Oh, Jesus. All right, well, don't know what Jason Java can do against 3-star Aatrox. This is pretty much just victory lap. And the fact that he can hit a 3-star legendary in tournament when he needs to get it first to get bonus points to maximize his odds to go to day number 4's final lobby is so big for Tleyds. At this point, it's just ceremonial. We saw what happened when his Aatrox got Zephyred. Apparently almost bugged out with his Darkened Flight and still is able to win super convincingly. Just has to make sure that this Aatrox probably doesn't get Zephyred in case of some any freaky scenario. I think the only option that Jason Java had was to go for a Cassante kick. If you position Aatrox in the corner, let's say he positioned it in A1, Cassante could kick it out. Oh my god, every single slash is doing obscene amounts of damage. Another 28,000 damage fight, and Tleyds gets that first place to maximize his chance for bonus points. What a cool game by Tleyds, and shows why he was a worthy competitor to advance to day number 4. And as it turns out, he did so well in day number 4 that he was able to actually get a spot in the upcoming North American mid-set finale, which he has an opportunity to play for a world championship spot if he wins it all. Good luck, Tleyds. We're all cheering for you. What do you think of his play? If I missed anything, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.